Welcome to the NOIRPOISED podcast, where wisdom is power is more than just a motto.
It's our way of life. While we don't claim to have all the answers, we're dedicated to delving deeper into different topics through meaningful conversations. As a duo, we bring different viewpoints to the table, enriching our joint journey towards growth and poise.
Join us as we explore and unlearn to relearn while striving to navigate life with poise. Do you think people in this day and age believe everything they see and hear in the media?
Unfortunately, I would say, yeah, for the most part, I think people do believe everything they see and hear coming from the media.
And now that you know what you know, for those who don't know, you have a background in journalism.
Yeah.
So that along with your research education as well. So you kind of just have it all.
I like to ask questions.
Yeah, you have journalism background, research background. And so with your knowledge and your experience and with what you know now, do you think people are just like living in a daze, or is it most people are aware of what it is but choose to not say anything maybe? Because we've been in situations like that, right? Where we have a conversation with a loved one and we're just like, we don't know where they stand. So let's just throw this at them and see what they respond, kind of thing. And we've had many times where the person came back with a response where we're just like, oh, okay, so you're aware.
Yeah.
You know, so do you think it's that kind of situation where a lot of people are aware of certain things, but we're all just kind of like, I ain't gonna say it if you don't say it?
Yeah. I think some people are like that, but for the most part, you see how you and I, we don't necessarily need proof that there's being lies spread in the media to believe lies are being spread in the media. I think for the most part, people are more like, I believe they can lie. I believe they have lied, but I'm not sure they're lying right now. So I'm just going to sweep this under the rug. But that personally for me changed. This was years ago, where my sister and I were home and we had the news on. It was, I think it was World News Tonight. So that I think it comes on.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Peter Jennings.
Yeah, I think it comes on. It was after he left, I believe. But point is, my sister and I were watching it. It was ending. And they usually like to end with a feel-good story. And they had a story about a soldier coming home to surprise his mom. You know, they like to do that.
I remember.
Yeah. So I'm not thinking anything of it. We're watching it, and I noticed that I know that soldier. And my sister and I are like, oh, look, it's so-and-so, right? And when I say I know this guy, I know this guy.
Right. Yeah.
First name, last name, knew his mama, knew his auntie, knew cousins. Like, I know him, but I haven't seen him for years before that, though.
Right.
So the story is he surprises his mother. He uses police officers, to pull her over. When the woman gets out the car, it wasn't his mom. So my sister and I are like,
wait a minute.
Like, maybe there's someone else in the car. Maybe there's a twist to the story, but no.
And they boldly say it's his mom.
It's his mother. He gave her flowers. He hugged her and everything. And I'm like, I know for a fact that that's not his mom. So that's much so
funny, man.
Just a few minutes ago, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm misremembering something. So let me go back and find it. I found the video and I can verify that wasn't his mother. Like, night and day different size.
And his mom is still alive.
His mom is still alive.
Okay.
Different size.
TV.
Yeah,
scene,
so
like a TV show scene.
We're literally just sitting there like,
okay,
what the hell was that? But at that moment, I think it all changed for me, because I always heard of, lies here and there, or media had to retract stories. Like, I was very familiar with that, especially coming from journalism. But for the first time, I had a somewhat personal experience to know, like, millions of people watching this are going to believe that story. I don't know what their agenda was. Maybe they just wanted a feel-good story. But the point is, at that moment, I realized that they just be lying.
Facts.
Because you had camera crews there. And coming from journalism, you have to go through a lot of verification. You can't just listen to one person saying, yeah, this is my mom, or this is what's going on. You asking for proof, you have witnesses, you have some kind of verification. The fact that that was able to happen and then be put on World News Tonight or whatever it was for millions of people to see, I was like, bruh. So they just be lying just to lie.
So just to point out, so with the verification aspect that you're stating, that means that there wasn't a chance that he maybe lied to the media, because that's a possibility too. I just want to make sure with the verification process that you're saying that happens, does that mean that there's no chance that he may have provided false information and the media is just kind of like, this is a story, we're just filming it?
We never know, honestly.
Okay.
We never know. But the reason why I highly doubt that is, again, coming from journalism school, we had to verify so much. Even if we had a quote from someone that we want to say, we had to get first name, last name. We had to get some kind of proof that this person is credible. This person is who they say they are.
You.
And the way the story works, it wasn't like he was recording the video himself. He had police officers. So first, you have police officers pull this woman over, meaning like they had to be following her.
Yeah.
Then you had news cameras there. So it was something that was very well organized. Yeah. So we always say you never know. We may be looking into things, but the probability of that happening is low, especially with the media's track record. But I do have a question for you, though.
Yeah.
When did you first realize that the media lies in order to influence some kind of an outcome?
Honestly, I don't know exactly when. Like, I didn't have like a specific moment like you just stated. But I do remember it might have been around the time that I started researching music and certain artists as a teenager and realizing how suspect a lot of the songs were, in a sense. Like, I kind of researched a lot about like the music industry and realizing that this company's owned by that company, and then that parent company's owned by this company, and ultimately everything's owned by the same thing. So learning what I learned about music in general, as far as like artists not writing their songs and so on, it kind of like just led me down a rabbit hole. And I then realized that a lot of the music industry is just owned by a few companies, basically. So it's just a limited amount of people running everything in the music industry. That led me to look into food. And I realized the same thing, which most of us may not know, but even with the food industry, you think you're buying two different brands, but they're being produced in the same factory, or they're owned by the same company, and ultimately they're not even competitors. They're actually just different umbrellas of the same exact company.
Right.
So little things like that just kind of led me to do research. And as time went on, little by little, I learned more and more, and I realized, oh snap, this isn't legit.
Whenever I talk to someone about this, they always have one question,
which is,
why would they do that?
That's really my answer, is that deep breath. I'm gonna be honest, because it's not a question that you can just answer. And if I start, I won't stop. That's one. And you kind of have to find out on your own. Like, it's not one specific answer, in my opinion, but I can't answer that. I really can't, because I feel like there's just so many reasons why they do it.
If you had to say at least one or two reasons of why you think they do it, not necessarily specific reasons why they do it, but to you, what is their goal?
Control, influence. If I had to just boil it down to just like one or two terms, it would be that. It would be to influence the masses, control the masses. It's all about getting people to do what they want, whether that's buying a specific product, going towards a specific direction, so on and so forth. I really think that's probably the ultimate goal, whatever that direction or that thing or whatever it is that they want us to do, ultimately, it's to influence. That's what the media is here for, right? It's to broadcast information, is to entertain, it's to inform. But when you realize that there aren't really any real competitors, you know what I mean? Like simple things like even technology, and you look into, well, who are the board members on this company?
Right.
And who are the board members on that company? If these two companies are competitors,
Right.
you'd be surprised to find that they're similar names.
Yeah.
So they're not competitors. The rich is just getting richer.
You know what's one of the biggest lies, or at least to me, the most offensive lie that the media tells is their portrayal of black people.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Unfortunately, that I didn't realize until I got older.
Even us as black people, I'm going to speak for myself. It has made me look at myself a certain way, and it's made me look at other people of my race a certain way. The other day when I had to go in for a work event, I was already dressed early that day because we had stepped out. And when I came back, you heard me changing my clothes. So I just had a regular crew neck shirt and jeans, and I look presentable. And this wasn't a formal work event. And the last work event I went to, I had literally all that was missing was the jacket. I had basically a shirt, tie, I had a vest, shoes, slacks, everything. And when I showed up there were people with short sleeve shirts, jeans, sneakers. So I felt overdressed. But when I came home, I started having these thoughts of, remember, you're black. Remember that you in jeans looks completely different than a white man in jeans. So I started to kind of guilt myself into dressing more professionally, to the point I literally had this thought like, I'm representing my race, so I have to look a specific way.
That's unfortunate.
Thankfully,
but that's the reality.
Thankfully, I caught myself and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wear what I want to wear.
I love that.
But all that ties into the years of how they portray black people on the media. If you're a man, you're either an athlete or a rapper or in prison.
Criminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up and I never had a good black role model in the business world or in the political world. And what's crazy is when I thought I found someone, and this is not to criticize anybody, of course, but when I thought I found someone, I would find that they are married to a white person. So in the back of my mind, it always made me feel like there's no one that's literally like us, where no, I'm just a regular black guy, married a regular black woman, and we're just successful. Like, they made me have the idea that in order to be successful, you have to have some kind of white person in the picture. And again, not knocking anybody who decides to marry someone out their race. That's totally up to you. But my point is, the media, I think, has done a tremendous job in creating a narrative out there, and creating that narrative to make it seem like black people are only limited at what they can do, and they're always going to ask for some kind of handout. I wanted to ask you, I know you said you can't really answer this, but if you were forced to answer this, why do you think the media portrays black people the way they do?
Well, when it comes down to race, that's different than why they lie to us in general. Like, generally, because I mean, the reality is there's lies about politics, music, food, race, culture, whatever. But when it comes down to race, why I think they create this narrative about black people or people of color in general, because it's not even black people. I remember having a conversation with a coworker maybe like almost a decade ago, and we were just sitting there like, yo, there's a narrative for every race except for the race that seems like they're running things. And so as much as like we may think it's just black people because we're black, so we notice that, it's done to other races too. But I do think it's to prevent us from advancing or having the confidence that we need to advance. And of course, this is my perception and opinion, despite all the narratives that were painted. Because like I said, I didn't notice the narrative painted until I became like 20s maybe. And I've always been surrounded by black people or different types of people, to be honest with you. I just always assumed that what they were portraying weren't the people that I personally knew. I just thought that the people that I knew were different. And I thought we were different because I grew up in the church. My family was not born here. So I always thought maybe it's a cultural difference. But because I'm born and raised in America, when I got to my 20s and I started having real adult experiences, I started to recognize that no, this isn't the narrative that's actually correct. This is all made up. Don't get me wrong. There are people who probably do fit that narrative, but it's not the average. Because now in my 30s, I've met a lot of people, whether that's at work, whether that's at church, whether that's in my personal life, whether it's family, whether it's like spouses of the people in my lives and their families. What's portrayed on television of us is probably like 2%.
Yeah.
And it's wild to think that that's what's being taught. And that's what I had to accept also, because I went to school with a lot of other races. I worked with a lot of other races. There were many times where I was the only Black individual in certain spaces. And so, like what you said earlier, I felt like I had to represent Black people. So then you start to kind of like walk on eggshells, because you're just like, I think there's this perception that there's this one size fits all situation. And because of what was painted in the media and what's pushed out for people to see, when you go into spaces where people are not used to being around us, they assume that that's what our culture is. And when you're in spaces where there's not many of you, you get dumb comments and ignorant statements and questions asked and stuff like that. For a long time, it irritated me. But then I had to realize, like, they legitimately sometimes don't know. Because imagine if you've never come across a certain race and all you saw was what was painted on TV.
Right.
I know people from the Middle East and people from India, and if I didn't know those people, I would believe everything that's painted of that type of person in the media.
Right.
But it takes knowing them to realize, like, people are individuals. Yeah, there's cultural things, but a lot of what's provided to us on television isn't entirely accurate. There may be truth to it in the sense, like, there's a few people out there who can relate, but that's not the story entirely.
I'm reminded of 2 rules that we were taught in journalism. The first one is bad news sells. So, of course, everything boils down to, at least to some extent, profit first. They want people to tune into the media. That's why when you have like a tragic story, the media talks about it over and over, because they know this is the bad news that's going to get people to keep watching, stay on the station, which is going to bring more advertising money. And the second one is if it bleeds, it leads, meaning bloodshed is always good. So
Crazy.
I say all that to say, if I had to summarize what's the point of the media influencing people or lying, it's to take your energy. You ever notice how, well, I'm going to use a personal example. I don't remember the name of this individual, but this happened, I think, last year or maybe a couple years ago. But there was a African-American man who died in police custody, and they were going to release the video. They announced that they were going to release the video a whole 24 hours before they would. And I'm not someone like you. You already know I don't watch TV like that. I would rather read the news and watch the news.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I ended up seeing that the whole night and even into the next day, I kept on waiting for 6 o'clock. And the closer the time got, the more anxious I got. Like, I really couldn't control it.
Yeah, I remember you said that to me.
And I had to stop myself and realize, like, I can't believe the amount of energy I'm giving this. And to break it down, like, when you have your mind focused on something, you're giving your energy to something, you can't do anything else. Because I remember that day vividly, but I don't remember anything else about that day.
It's crazy.
So I was, working. I was at home. I'm a whole husband and everything, but I could not focus because I'm thinking about when that video drops, I want to see how bad this is. And it was, of course, getting me angry, etc.
That's the purpose, honestly.
Yeah. I think that's the purpose, to get you into a certain state of mind where you're more easily controllable.
Exactly.
And if people think like, we're making this up, there's tons of data to show this around how when we see certain images, we naturally become desensitized from it. We've seen,
I think we mentioned that in a podcast before, in a podcast episode, where our minds cannot tell what's real and fake when we're watching it. And that's why sometimes what you watch in movies and shows it literally is desensitizing you to
Right.
that. So when you see it in person, it's probably not going to be as traumatic because you've experienced it before.
Right. Like you ever watch a show? I'm sure everyone could relate where you watch a show and let's say it's a drama show, you're so into it that your heart starts racing a little bit or your palms might even get sweaty.
Yeah.
Or let's say you're having a dream, you had a bad dream and you wake up, you're still feeling the same emotions you're feeling in the dream. It's because your mind cannot really process whether something is
actually happening
happening or not. So all these bad news, all this bloodshed that were shown on TV is desensitizing us to the point now where you have people literally watching other people get murdered and they just pull out their phones and start recording it.
That actually makes me remember this was years ago where a young boy was like brutally killed in the Bronx.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think that was my last time watching something to that extent. Like for me, I mean, if you know us, you know TV's not a thing here. We may do it like for pleasure. If we have guests over, we're watching a movie, cool, but it's not something we do regularly. And it's partly for that reason. It's like you want your peace of mind. You know what I mean? But I remember that video so vividly. And I was like, yeah, I'm not getting into this stuff anymore, because we were literally, it was everywhere.
Yeah,
we were watching it like it was a movie. And I don't think people stopped to realize, like, no, this kid was this is someone's child, this is someone's sibling, that was a person. It wasn't a scene in a movie. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but it was legitimately a person. I think what happens sometimes is we're so used to seeing these things that we're able to literally watch it over and over and over and over. And you don't realize what that's doing to your mind and your spirit. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I second on that, honestly.
If you really follow the trends, and again, you could look this up online. I think it was in the late 90s or mid to late 90s. Most of the blockbuster movies was about war.
Yeah.
A little after that, it became wartime.
Yep.
Fast forward to the 2000s, was like 2010, 2015. A lot of movies was about zombies and apocalypse,
right.
You know, and then fast forward a few years later, we have COVID happening.
Yep.
Like, believe it or not, there are a lot of times when we're being conditioned to prepare. We're being conditioned to prepare for something.
Mm-hmm.
So
we just don't know what it is. But,
right. And yeah. I personally think that's one of the goal of the media is, let's just start building this up little by little. And in a few years, when we decide to make this happen, everyone will be so susceptible. Like, I still think to myself randomly, like, the whole world really shut down.
It's crazy.
For the most part, people were making jokes about it afterwards. When it was happening, of course, it was serious. But I look back to all the jokes that were made about COVID and all that. I can't help but think, like, wow, the whole world really shut down. And looking at society today, you would have never thought that happened. But I think it's because we were conditioned to do that. Mm-hmm. So things like war and COVID, of course, they're always tragic, but sometimes I can't help but think that the media portrays certain things to prepare us for future events. That's one of the reasons why I personally decided not to look at certain news events or to give my energy to certain things. It's because, one, if I know I'm being lied to, even if I'm not being lied to on a daily basis, I'm not saying that every story out there is a lie. There are a lot of truths out there.
Yeah.
But the point is, ask questions.
Use your brain.
Use your brain. Yeah. Do research.
Like our family would say.
Yeah. Do research. Ask questions. Don't believe everything you see. It's something that you and I actually say to, like, between us, where you may come to me and say, this is what I found on X, Y, and Z. And I'll tell you, yeah, I'm going to get back to you on that. And I bring certain things to you. And you're like, oh, yeah, really? I'm going to get back to you on that. I want to do my own research. So one of the things I don't like is when people frown upon asking questions.
Yeah, we live in that time now, unfortunately, where it's wrong to ask questions. It's wrong to do your own research. It's wrong to have a different opinion. It's wrong to disagree.
Yeah, that's the part I don't get, because it's like, why can't I ask questions? Especially when everyone here is a human being. There's times where I've said things in the past that I may have thought was true, but it turns out to be untrue. I do cut the media some slack because I know no one's perfect, and I've been in environments before where a simple editorial mistake could really put the wrong perception out there.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. But once you're told to not ask questions or to just believe everything you're being told, I think that's when you should really start paying attention. Like,
Yeah, that's when you should
what is
be
the
asking
agenda out there?
questions.
Right.
Yeah, that's when you should ask questions. Like, and that's not even just media, but that's everything. Like,
Yeah.
growing up in the church, you don't want to take what someone's telling you and run with it. You go back home and you do your own research and you find out information on your own. The same with, like, if you're learning something in school, you go back home and you read that textbook and get the details. So I think it's the same with everything else. Like, you shouldn't be taking information from someone and not doing your own research, not finding out things on your own. We should be inquisitive about everything. At this point in time, you can't even trust what you see and hear anymore. Between AI, deep fakes, holograms, it's like, what's real anyway these days? Let's be for real. Like, what's real at this point? Sometimes I literally tell you this all the time where I'm just like, yo, I don't even trust my eyes.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. Like, you really got, at this day and age, you really got to just trust your gut.
Yeah, discernment is important.
There's a couple of people that I've spoken to just in the past, and whenever this topic has come up and we really go in depth, their reaction is always the same. Essentially, okay, we're done. Like, what's the point of life if this is everything that's going on? And I think we went through a short period of that as well.
Yeah,
like
it was like before we got married, we were just like, we don't want to bring a kid into this
like,
world. It's terrible here. But nah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, around that time, like, at least I know I was convinced, like, you know what, this world's probably gonna last, a couple more years. I'm just gonna enjoy it while it lasts.
Every generation says
right,
the same thing.
Exactly. But I do think it is important to go through that period of dread when you're hit with that
So
kind of
much
information, to know that you may think you're in control, but realistically you're following someone else's agenda,
basically.
And this was said actually at one of the World Economic Forum meetings, where this guy was saying, you may go to the grocery store and you may think to yourself, this is what I want to purchase, but realistically, we told you to purchase this. And this is, again, someone who's on the global stage saying, no, people are told what to do and they think it's themselves.
Right.
So you are going to go through a period of dread when you learn these things and be like, okay, I thought I was in control, but I feel so hopeless. But the part that gives me peace is knowing that when evil rises, good rises as well.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why I personally believe that they lie and they try to distract you. It's to keep you from living your best life, realizing your own purpose. I think there's a good correlation between people who stop listening to the media or stop believing everything that the media says, and people who just sit there and follow everything blindly. Like, when I speak to certain people who question everything, they're doing exactly what they want to do in life. But when I talk to people who are more so, no, this is what I heard on the news and this is what I'm believing, no matter how much time that goes by, it seems like they're still stuck in that rut and they can't get out. And I think that's when I realized the importance of just questioning everything.
Yeah.
Because eventually, you go through that period of dread where you feel like, what's the purpose of life? But then you start realizing or learning that there's even a greater purpose than you had originally realized.
Yeah, it's almost like you were stuck in a daze, and learning new information kind of like gets you out of it, and you're just like, oh, I see life so much clearer now. Like, so it kind of aligns you to whatever purpose or purposes that you have or should be doing. At least that's what I feel like happened for me. The more I learned, the beginning, like you said, it was just like, what is it here? And I still have moments where I'm just like, yo, what is happening, kind of thing, especially when you hear things a little in advance and you're just like, what in the world? But it brings clarity to how we should be living life. And it's almost like a little bit of a motivation.
Yeah.
At least for me, it started making me operate a little bit differently and thinking differently and seeing things differently. So now you're not focusing on, well, this is what's considered normal. It's like, forget your normal. I'm creating my own normal. And if you don't see that, which we go through this all the time, people will look at us and think we're extra or whatever the case is. It's just like you see life in a whole new way that you almost cannot follow the sheep anymore.
Yep.
And that's basically what it is. It's kind of like breaking out of that herd that was leading you in the wrong path.
It's breaking out of that programming, and it's no coincidence that they call it TV programming. But I personally believe that no matter what your spiritual, political, social beliefs are, the media is going to stunt your growth. Some people think like, no, I listen to this, so I think I'm good, or I listen to that, so I think I'm good. If you're listening to anything without questioning, you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
The whole point is to start questioning things to get that clarity, because there is a greater purpose for everyone out there. That's what I had to realize for myself, that, oh snap, I could do more than I was told I could do.
Right.
Like, we're literally told by the media, this is what you do. You're 5 years old, you go to kindergarten. After that, after elementary school, you go to junior high school. After that, you go to high school. After high school, you go to college. After college, you do internships, you get jobs.
Now I think it's
you
like
married.
67 or 72.
So they literally keep you in a specific program, so you never have a chance to live.
Yep.
And that's something where I notice where a lot of old people go through, or older people go through, I should say, is they get to a point and they're like, hold up,
my life is over.
My life is over. I just blinked and
it'd be like that.
Yeah, so much time has passed by. I think it's because we're taught to be under a program.
We're taught to kind of like operate robotically. When you're constantly listening to what is told to you rather than being inquisitive and questioning things and making your own opinions and moving in your own way, time will naturally move quicker. I mean, time moves quick in general because we're just so busy as adults, right? But it's almost like you're a rat in a maze where you just keep on going until you get to a point and you realize like, oh, there's not that much time left. You know what I mean? You don't have to follow the order that they say that things are supposed to go in. And that's really the realization for me when it comes to stuff like this, is there is always a way. We're just painted specific images on how things should be done, but that doesn't mean that you have to follow that. That doesn't mean that you have to stay in that programming.
I like to think of it this way. Either you're an influencer or you're being influenced.
Yes.
If you notice that you're on social media or watching any kind of news and you're being influenced, know that at that moment, they're taking away your creative ability to influence, because you're in that seat to receive. You need to be in the seat of, no, I'm influencing out there. I'm influencing or motivating even myself to do more, and not just sit there and being told what exactly to do.
I actually ran across this. I wish I had it. I'm just going to paraphrase because I don't have the details, but maybe when we post this episode, I could probably like find it and snip it by then. I saw this research that was done years ago, probably decades, I think, where they took a group of children that were 2 and under and tested them and realized that they had genius capabilities. They went back and they tested those children. I think it was from 2 to 5. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it was from 2 to 5. They noticed that a smaller percentage of those children still had the genius capabilities. When they went back to do more tests after the fact, after the children have started schooling, so on and so forth, they realized that it was probably, I think, 2%. I don't want to give exact numbers, but point is, as the kids got older, there was a less percentage of them that had the genius capabilities. And what I got from that is the things that we're programmed to believe, the things that we're programmed to do, is dumbing us down. And that's why you'll sometimes hear like people say, yeah, when so-and-so was this age, they were able to do this, that, and the third. They had so much potential. And as time goes on, their potential decreases. It's because we unfortunately live in a society where we're not encouraged to think. We're not encouraged to have opinions anymore. We're not encouraged to be individuals. If you go against the grain, you're, what's the word I'm looking for?
You're labeled.
Ostracized. You're ostracized in a sense. Like, people expect everyone to think the same, act the same, do the same, be into the same. If everyone's doing this on Sundays, this is what we do. If everyone's doing this with their children at this age, this is what we do. And it's just like, but we're all individuals though, and we grow at different paces. We're all different. So why Why should we expect to operate the same way that everyone else is operating? And sometimes we only think of things like this when it comes to children, but it's not just children, it's all of us.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if it's politicians, preachers, religious teachers,
Everything.
question everyone and everything.
Period. Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you gained some knowledge today that'll promote poise in your life. We have new episodes uploaded every Thursday right here, same place, same time. Until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at NOIRPOISED Podcast to stay connected. That's NOIRPOISED Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback.
And remember, your wisdom is power.